Welcome everybody to this Sunday morning service here at Salt Lake Christian Church. The story that I will be telling you all this morning is about the great theologian and pastor Charles Spurgeon. Charles grew up in a small town in England, and as around the age of 16, he was nearly 16, when he felt the call of God on his soul. And he knew that he needed to be saved. He knew that he was a sinner and that his sin had separated him from God and that he needed to be saved, but he wasn't sure how. And so, one fateful Sunday morning, there was a crazy blizzard had stormed through his town, and most of the town was snowed in. However, he decided to attempt to go to church, and on his way walking through this blizzard to get to church, the storm began to roar up and get worse. And wanting to just get out of this bad weather, he turned down a side street that he didn't normally take, and he ended up slipping into a small Methodist church. Not the church he was planning on going to, but the one that God led him to. And in this small church, there was just a handful of people there, about a dozen, maybe 15. And the pastor of this church wasn't even there that morning, because he presumably was snowed in as well. And in his stead, one of the deacons was preaching. And from Charles's own account, this man was not accustomed to preaching. He stuck primarily to the text that he was reading out of because, according to Charles, he just didn't have much else to say. And he let the text speak for itself for the most part. But he was reading, and he was reading in the prophets, and he mentioned a verse that called for people to look onto God to be saved, where the prophet was crying out to the people of Israel to turn back to God and be saved. And this just hit Charles right in the heart. He felt like this deacon preaching was speaking directly to him. And at one point in his sermon, this preacher actually did, recognizing Charles as a stranger in the small church. He kind of called him out, and he said to him from the pulpit, "Son, you look like you are struggling this morning." And this threw Charles for a loop a little bit. He felt it odd to be called out directly from the pulpit. But it was exactly what he needed. That morning, that fateful Sunday during that blizzard, the Holy Spirit reached out to Charles Spurgeon. And just like Moses raised up the bronze serpent in the wilderness to rescue the Israelites from the snake bites, Christ calls us to look upon him for salvation. And that morning, Charles recognized. The pastor preached, he said, "Looking isn't a difficult task. Anyone can look. It doesn't require hardly any effort at all. Even a child can look." And that is what God requires of us, to look unto him. And so, Charles Spurgeon felt the call of the Holy Spirit that morning, and he ended up praying and accepting Christ and the Holy Spirit into his heart. And he went on from there to become one of the most renowned and influential pastors of the 1800s. So thank you. Let's bring the music.